the integrity of our democratic process outweighs concerns about a vacant seat. So yes, it is a no man's land when it comes to North Carolina's 9th congressional district. There's no hearing date set for Harris's new petition in court. We have no answers yet from any of the investigations into the alleged fraud. And the local paper, the Charlotte Observer, says a new election, if it were to happen, might not take place for months. What we do know is that there are almost 800,000 people without someone representing them in Congress today, all because someone, the Republican operative, working for a firm hired by the Republican candidate, might have tried to cheat to win. We'll be right back.
Minimums and fees, they seem to be the very foundation of your typical bank. Capital One is anything but typical. That's why we designed Capital One Cafes. You can get savings and checking accounts with no fees or minimums, and one of America's best savings rates. To top it off, you can open one from anywhere in 5 minutes. This isn't a typical bank. This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Sometimes I like to go in Trivago and explore the different possibilities a hotel can offer me. A beautiful swimming pool. A Caribbean beach. Whoa! Okay. Start planning with Trivago. Search for your destination, choose filters, and select your maximum budget. Trivago will compare prices from hundreds of websites worldwide to find the ideal hotel for you. Hotel? Trivago.
Our yard could really use some work. Do you know any good landscapers?
You know, I think I do.
I need quotes from your top 4 guys and check their credentials and customer reviews.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So just ask Home Advisor.
For myself and you, I know this love is true. And I never let you go.
Elite Singles, the leading dating site for highly educated singles. Register today to love again at EliteSingles.com.
Welcome to Atlantis, where the unexpected awaits. A vacation that touches your soul, where unexpected moments become lifelong memories, bonding you to strangers, to friends, to the ocean. There are many vacations, but the best ones happen on an island called Paradise at a place called Atlantis.
Save up to 30% when you book by January 14th at 1-800-ATLANTIS or AtlantisBahamas.com.
This is Gilda Radner, her voice and her writing.
People want to know what made you funny. From the time I was a kid, I loved to pretend.
They loved her.
The comedian gets the most unfunny thing in the world.
She felt that she could be of help, and that's exactly what she did.
It's the story of my life.
Hi, we're Warby Parker, an eyewear company that offers high-quality glasses starting at $95, including prescription lenses. Our frames are designed in-house and made from premium materials like cellulose acetate and lightweight titanium, and include scratch-resistant and anti-reflective lens coatings. It may sound too good to be true, but we believe glasses can be well-made, stylish, and affordable, and have set out to prove that with every pair. Try 5 frames for free today at warbyparker.com.
I got this mountain bike for only $11.
Deal-Dash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. An iPad worth $505 was sold for less than $24, a PlayStation 4 for less than $16, and a Schultz 4K television for less than $2.
I won these Bluetooth headphones for $20.
I got these 3 suitcases for less than $40.
And shipping is always free.
Go to Deal-Dash.com right now and see how much you can save.
Tonight, I want to update you on a story we first reported back in June when the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy at the border with Mexico resulted in migrant children being separated from their parents who were seeking asylum from violence in Central America. ProPublica published a secret audio recording of a Salvadorian girl separated from her mom, crying for an aunt to come pick her up. Here it is again. Who can forget it?
Vas a llegar con... Mira, ella te va a explicar y te va a ayudar.
Mi tía, por lo menos, para que llegue.
Well, fortunately, little Allison was reunited with her mom, Cindy. Gary Tuckman tells us where they are now.
7-year-old Allison Jimena Madrid enjoying the day at the Children's Museum of Houston.
Are you happy today? ¿Tú eres feliz hoy?
Sí, muy feliz. Sí, mamá, de verdad.
A very different story from when she and her mother first came to this country. And now, almost 6 months later, they're getting ready for their first asylum hearing, the start of a process which will determine whether or not they can stay in the U.S. As they've waited for the hearing, Allison Jimena has been going to a public school in Houston. When she arrived in the U.S., she did not speak a word of English.
So, Allison Jimena, you have something you want to read?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear in English.
Why I love America. I love my school. I love my church. I love to smile. I love and believe in the America dream. Happy New Year, America.
Happy New Year, America, to you too.
Happy New Year, America.
Her mother, Cindy, is doing her best to learn English at her church.
1, 2, 3, 4.
She cannot legally get a job at this stage of the asylum process, but says she wants to work.
Sea limpieza, sea en un restaurante.
She says she would like to have a job cleaning or at a restaurant, or whatever job she can get, as long as she can do it with dignity.
Rox and Blair work together. They mix the cracked apples, sugar, salt, and water.
So what is the likelihood that daughter and mother will be granted asylum? Their lawyer says she is hopeful, but
there's a good chance that it may not be granted.
Attorney Garcia says Cindy Madrid left to protect Allison, her only child, from gang violence. Allison told us what her understanding is of that threat.
Me querían robar de mi mamá, yo no quería.
The gang, she says, they wanted to steal me. The attorney says if Cindy Madrid loses her case and is sent back to El Salvador, that is not an overstatement.
Could be death. They had very serious problems with gang violence. They had no protection by the police as well. So we're not expecting anything good if she is returned back home.
Allison Jimena says Houston is now her home.
It is a sunny day when friends stick together.
El fin, the end.
The finish. Okay.
But this legal battle is far from finished.
So how long does this asylum hearing process take? A long time. A typical case like this takes 8 to 12 months before a final decision is made. But this could end up taking even longer, and that's because of the partial government shutdown. Right now, many immigration courts are closed. And any case that involves a migrant who's not being detained, like Cindy or Allison, their cases have been postponed right now. So we don't know if Cindy and Allison's case will start on the day it's supposed to. Don?
Thanks, Gary, and thanks for watching. Our coverage continues.
Good evening. The world changed today for President Trump, and it could change even more tonight if and when Democrats, who now control the House, push through legislation to reopen the government. The White House has already threatened to veto it. We'll bring you that as it happens. For now, we'll focus on the longer term and potentially more serious consequence of Democrats in power. For the first time since taking office, President Trump is facing the prospect of real, extensive, and wide-ranging scrutiny from the opposition party led by a highly disciplined adversary.
And to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, I extend to you this gavel. Thank you.
That happened at about 2:30 Eastern Time. About 90 minutes later, markets closed with the Dow Industrials nearly 700 points lower on the day. On top of that, the government shutdown entered its 13th day. All in all, a very sobering day. So what did the president do in the wake of it all? Well, he made a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room with leaders of a Border Patrol officer union who praised him on his wall. It was billed as a press conference, but neither he nor Press Secretary Sarah Sanders took any questions, making it something of a stunt. He also put up another one of those weird Game of Thrones movie-type posters of himself on Instagram, this one saying, "The wall is coming," which is the subject for the ridiculous a little bit later tonight. We'll also talk later about whether movie posters and briefing cameos are just shiny objects to distract from more serious matters, like the not-so-shiny, very real bottom line the president now faces. A whole new world for him, one in which the Speaker of the House is a member of the opposition party, and she's not ruling out impeachment.
We shouldn't be impeaching for a political reason, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. So we'll just have to see how it comes.
She says she wants to go slow, but the new Democratic chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith, says it's not too soon to be talking about it. His colleague today, Congressman Brad Sherman, actually took the step of introducing articles of impeachment, which makes him an outlier for now. But it does underscore how potentially serious this could get for the president, who, as you know, is now being investigated along with his company and his now defunct charity by Robert Mueller's team, by the Southern District of New York, by the New York Attorney General. And now you can add Congressman Elijah Cummings' House Oversight Committee to that mix, and the House Judiciary Committee, now chaired by Jerry Nadler, who's long been calling for more investigation.
We have to find out exactly what was going on. We have to look at the Russian interference with the campaign and what did the president know about that and to what extent did he cooperate with that, if he did. We have to look at his business dealings and his lying about that. We have to look at the fact that he surrounded himself with crooks, and we have to get to the bottom of this.
Well, today he took a step in that direction, introducing legislation to protect Special Counsel Mueller. He told Armando Raju he wants to hear from Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker whether he's willing or not.
Still trying to get a date, and they're figuring out a date. We'll see what happens.
Will you send a subpoena to him if he doesn't?
We will if we have to.
And now, for the first time in the Trump presidency, the opposition party has subpoena power. Whatever you think of the acting attorney general, or the president for that matter, it's a far cry from the days when a chairman of the House Intelligence Committee who's friendly to the White House can go to the White House, get talking points from someone there, and then later pretend to have just briefed the president on the very same White House talking points.
Today I briefed the president on the concerns that I had about incidental collection and how it relates to President-elect Trump and his transition team, and the concerns that I have. What I've read bothers me, and I think it should bother the president himself and his team.
Well, the White House-friendly Devin Nunes no longer runs the Intelligence Committee. Congressman Adam Schiff does, and just about an hour ago he made news saying he's preparing for a committee vote to send the unredacted transcripts from all their interviews to Special Counsel Mueller. Again, you can see the change of power in the House as a good thing or a bad thing, but good or bad, one thing is beyond debate. It is now a different world politically for this president and this administration. We'll, of course, bring you the House budget vote tonight when it happens, but first, some perspective from California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, who serves on the Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. I spoke to him just a short time ago. Congressman, today Speaker Pelosi said that the incoming House will be, quote, for the people. Do you think voters are going to view multiple investigations into the president as for the people?
Well, it'll be for a balance of power on many abuses of power that we've seen in the past. But we can't miss the opportunity to also do what they sent us here, which was to collaborate on infrastructure, passing the DREAM Act, having background checks, and reforming prescription drugs. And Anderson, those are all things that Donald Trump said he wanted to do, including even at last year's State of the Union, but a Republican Congress never brought forward. So we're going to put that forward, but we're also not going to shirk our oversight responsibilities.
Some of your fellow Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee introduced legislation to protect the Mueller investigation. Even if that bill were to pass in the full House, McConnell has made it clear he doesn't see a need for it, won't bring it to the Senate floor for a vote. So is a House vote anything more than just symbolic? Does it matter?
Well, we also hope that it will build momentum on the Senate side, that vulnerable senators will see that the will of the American people is that they want this investigation protected, and that it'll, it's already passed in a bipartisan vote on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and hopefully would come to a full vote. But Mitch McConnell, by not allowing this to come forward, is suppressing the will of the majority of his own members. And so I think it's going to take outside voices. You saw today Cory Gardner's already coming forward talking about ending the shutdown by not having wall approval, and he's in a tight seat. There's other Republican senators in a similar fashion, so I think you're going to see pressure build.
But do you think this is what we're going to see a lot of over the next 2 years, bills that pass the Democratic-led House and yet really have no chance at all of passing a Republican-led Senate?
Well, I think a lot of what we're going to do is just purely protect health care from being cut even further, the protections that were put in place by the Affordable Care Act, protect paychecks from, seeing tax cuts go only to the top and not to working families, and protect against corruption. And yes, advance, as I said, on transportation, prescription drugs, background checks where we can, but also it's going to be the 2020 field, I think, that's going to really put forward what Democratic priorities will be if we have the House and the Senate in 2021.
As mentioned earlier, fellow House Democrat of yours took the step today of introducing articles of impeachment against the president. Is that a smart move in your opinion, or do you think it's counterproductive at this point?
No, it's not a move that I support. This president, Anderson, may be impeached, but we're certainly not there with the evidence. We are going to, look where Republicans were unwilling to look before and build an airtight case if that's what's necessary, seek bipartisan buy-in, and make sure if we go that way, the American people understand why. But we should not be as reckless with the facts as Donald Trump is, and we should give him probably a fairer investigation than he deserves.
Well, just lastly, the upcoming vote in the Intelligence Committee to send Mueller its unredacted interview transcripts. What do you expect Mueller to learn from them that he doesn't already know?
Well, he'll see that in the basement of the House Intelligence Committee are just boxes of transcripts that have lies of witnesses who came before us, were not straightforward. Some of them, like Roger Stone, have had to amend their testimony over and over because of free press reporting that showed that he wasn't straightforward. And so I hope those witnesses are held accountable and that it helps Bob Mueller's investigation.
Congressman Swalwell, appreciate your time. Thanks.
My pleasure.
So we're seeing divided government play out tonight as we speak, and challenges to the president have been coming all day. I want to talk about it. CNN chief legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Jeffrey Toobin joins me. Also USA Today columnist and CNN political analyst Kirsten Powers, and former Republican senator and presidential candidate Rick Santorum. Jeff, you heard Congressman Swalwell talk about the very real consequences when the Intelligence Committee turns over those unredacted witness testimony. Do you buy that?
Yes, I think it is significant. I don't know if any of those statements will be proven to be false, but you could not bring a criminal case without the actual transcript. So it is it is a necessary but not sufficient step for Mueller to bring these cases, and it's only logical, it's only fair for him to have these to do a complete investigation.
Senator Santorum, how worried would you be if you're the president and you don't have an ally like Devin Nunes running the House Intelligence Committee anymore?
Look, I mean, for the president, this comes down to two things. Number one, impeachment, and the House is going to do what the House is going to do. The Senate will never, at least given the current state of play right now, is not going to come anywhere close to impeaching the president. The second is simply things that they can do to harass the president. And this is one of those harassment things. I mean, it's not going to touch the president. There are people that may have said things that under oath that turned out to be wrong. Again, that doesn't really do anything other than create more smoke, but no real fire for the president.
Kirsten, do you think Democrats in the House should be cautious on how they approach the prospect of impeachment? And we've talked about this before. In our next hour, we're going to speak with the Congressman Jerry Connolly, who's now in the majority of the House Oversight Committee, and he says he's already seen enough, just with the president being an unindicted co-conspirator in the Cohen filing.
Look, I mean, Donald Trump is obviously extremely unpopular with the base of the Democratic Party, and so it's understandable that there are people who want him out of office any way possible, and are letting their passion probably get a little ahead of themselves and not considering that the kind of blowback that can come from these kinds of actions. And we've seen this in history when there has been overreach. So I think the position that Nancy Pelosi has staked out, which is really the position of the Democratic Party at this point, is you need to wait for the investigation. And if we get to a point where you have a president who's been indicted, for example, then yes, you should start looking at possibly impeaching him. But I don't think based on what they have in front of them at this point, that there are any impeachable offenses that, at least, you know, as far as I think the average American would look at it, would feel it would be appropriate to be doing
and
that.
Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, they are so aware of the precedent of 1998 when the House Republicans rushed ahead with impeachment, knowing there would never be 67 votes in the Senate to remove President Clinton. They're not going to do that again. They're not going to make that mistake. So, you know, we can talk
a lot of
about
Republicans will say, though, the drumbeat, the pressure is just going to build, and whether or not they right now think they're going to do it, they're going to get let into doing it.
It's just not true. I mean, it's just not true.
Senator Santorum, go ahead.
Yeah, Anderson, the timing is really important here. I was there in 1997 and 98. Bill Clinton had just gotten reelected, and these things came out, and the drumbeat started. We were looking at 4 more years or 3.5 more years of Bill Clinton. Here, you're in the middle of a presidential race right now. We're the last 2 years of his first term. And so the timing is just very different. The chance to beat Donald Trump is not going to be through impeachment. We're not going to beat Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was elected for his last 4 years, and the only way we're going to get rid of Bill Clinton is through impeachment. That's not the case here. The case before you is really making a political case for 2020. That's why I think impeachment is probably not going to happen, because it's just not good politics for the Democrats.
God, for the first time ever, I just could not agree more than Rick with Rick Santorum. I think every word you just said was perfect.
But it's interesting because, Rick, I thought you were going to say the exact opposite, because a lot of Republicans we have talked to who have been arguing with Jeff about this say, you can say all you want right now that they're not going to go for impeachment, but it's going to be irresistible to them.
I just don't think. Look, what they're interested in is beating Donald Trump, getting rid of Donald Trump, and gaining more political power. It's going to be obvious that the best way to do that is to do all the harassment. Maybe there may be some smoke of impeachment or even some discussion. But the idea of actually trying to force an impeachment resolution in the United States Senate, I think, is just very bad politics in the midst of an election.
The other thing you have to remember, I think, Anderson, the reason a lot of these people are saying that is, I mean, some of them may believe it, but they're mostly doing it to gin up the president's base. This idea that the president, and they were doing it a lot leading up to the midterms, this idea that, you know, that this is what's going to happen if the Democrats get control of Congress. They're going to impeach the president, so you need to vote for Republicans, and to continue to make it seem like the president is under this sort of imminent threat of the crazy progressives coming for him. But I think that people who think that this could happen just don't understand Nancy Pelosi.
They will, Kirsten, they'll be coming for him. They just there's lots of ways to come after Donald Trump.
I'm talking about impeachment.
Yeah,
impeachment.
Right. There's better ways to skin this cat.
I remain on Team Santorum, but I would not call it harassment. I would say oversight. This is what Congress is supposed to do. But I think your analysis of the motivations of the Democrats is exactly right.
But Jeff, what about, I mean, Nadler, who's obviously the new chairman of the Judiciary, has said that in the past, even a crime should not necessarily equal impeachment. He didn't say the president should automatically get a pass, but he basically said, look, it would take an extreme step.
It would take an extreme step. And look, it obviously depends on what information comes out. But certainly the universe of evidence that we are all aware of, or what is likely to come out, certainly doesn't suggest to me there is anything out there that might garner 67 votes in the Senate. And Nancy Pelosi knows that, Jerry Nadler knows that, and they're just not going to go on that fool's errand.
If, Senator Santorum, I mean, if Democrats in the House take it slow, wait for the Mueller report, and decide it is damning enough to proceed to impeachment, they'd be basing that conclusion on the report of a Republican former FBI director, a Republican recipient of the Purple Heart and Bronze Star. I mean, the president's tried to paint Mueller as some partisan hack. I guess in an election year, that's an argument you can make, but it's not really true.
Well, look, the bottom line is that Bob Mueller surrounded himself with a bunch of Democrats on his team, and who have, rather, in some cases, scurrilous backgrounds in when it comes to who they go after. So I don't think Mueller is really going to be the issue here. The issue is, does the American public and are a significant number of Republicans going to read this report and see this as a Nixon-esque type of situation? A former senator from Pennsylvania, Hugh Scott, looked at all the evidence as a Republican and went to the president and said, we can't do this. We're not going to stand by you. If it reaches that point, we'll know. The Democrats won't have to push it. But as Jeffrey said, I don't see anything in the Mueller leaks and other information that's been out there that rises to this level at this point.
You still on Team Santorum?
He's on Team Tubin. It's a beautiful thing, Rick. I mean, it's a whole new year. It's gonna be great.
All right.
About that.
Let's take a break on that. Coming up, let's just bask in that thought for a little while. We're going to talk about the president's news conference in name only. He took no questions, of course, supplied no answers, but did say that he knows more about drones than anybody, so there's always that. And later, we'll keep digging into something Speaker Pelosi said today when asked if she thought a sitting president could be indicted. Her answer got both the legal and political types buzzing. We'll take a look ahead.
Anderson Cooper 360, brought to you by Pfizer.
I'm Ray, and I quit smoking with Chantix. Smoking, it dictates your day. I didn't like something having control over me. I wanted to stop. The thing is I didn't know how.
Chantix, along with support, helps you quit smoking.
Chantix reduced my urge to smoke, and to the point that I could quit.
When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Some people had changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, or suicidal thoughts or actions with Chantix. Serious side effects may include seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or allergic and skin reactions, which can be life-threatening. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have any of these. Tell your healthcare provider if you've had depression or other mental health problems. Decrease alcohol use while taking Chantix. Use caution when driving or operating machinery. The most common side effect is nausea.
For me, Chantix worked. Boom. End of story.
Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. Come on,
Today, back pain can't win. Thankfully, there's Aleve Back and Muscle Pain. Aleve targets tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve Back and Muscle, all day strong, all day long.
These folks, they don't have time to go to the post office. They have businesses to grow, customers to care for, lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com. Print discounted postage for any letter, any package, anytime, right from your...
Democrats officially took control of the House. They passed a package of bills that would end the shutdown, but without money for the border wall. The president promised a veto, of course. Joining me now to discuss is James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence. Director, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening to you.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been on many times. You've expressed a lot of concern about the behavior of this president, his impact on this country. Do you think the Democratic Congress will provide a much-needed check of this president, or do you think that idea is overrated?
Well, they could. I just hope the Democrats manage their oversight and not just throw everything on the wall and hope something sticks, but pick some priorities, some things that should be done on a priority basis by the key oversight committees, and to think through, and would be useful on the part of the Democrats if they coordinated among themselves so they deconflict. And so I think, yes, the potential is there, but I think it's very important that it be managed.
Don't overplay your hand.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sources tell CNN that President Trump received another letter from Kim Jong-un, which he reportedly tossed at Senator Chuck Schumer at that meeting yesterday. The last time Trump got a letter from Kim, he said this. Watch, here it is.
When I did it, and I was really being tough, and so was he, and we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love.
I don't know why that song of Fine Romance just popped into my head, but anyways.
Yeah.
I'm showing my age now. Is the president confusing nice letters with concrete steps towards denuclearization?
Well, of course. I mean, Kim Jong-un he's playing President Trump like a fiddle right now, and in the meantime, what Kim Jong-un is doing is de facto he is a nuclear state. North Korea is a nuclear state. And every day goes by that de facto situation continues. He's getting closer and closer to being de jure, which is what he wants. Mm-hmm. And the North Koreans are not going to denuclearize. And in his New Year's Day address, he laid out some pretty stiff conditions before they'll consider denuclearizing. So the approach we're taking, not going to work. And if they have another summit, that's great. But Kim Jong-un is not term limited, and he's got about 40 years of youth.
But there could be another summit because sources are telling CNN that the Trump administration is scouting locations for a second summit with him. Do you see any reason to hold another summit at this point?
Well, I really don't, unless it's a do-over. I wish that President Trump had asked Kim Jong-un, because first chance we've had in the history of the Kim family, decades, where we could hear it from the horse's mouth. What exactly is it that you need so that you don't need to rely on nuclear weapons for your security? And that's where, to me, the discussion ought to start with the North Koreans. I don't know how you map out a negotiating strategy when we don't really know that. And it might be very interesting and instructive to hear what the response would be. So maybe this will be a do-over, and they'll get a chance to do that, and also agree on what denuclearization means. And as we're hearing, and as I've said before on your show, for the North Koreans, denuclearization is a two-way street. It applies to us in their mind, not just to them.
Yeah. I just a letter, dear Mr. President, at long last. So listen, the president had some bewildering comments about Russian history yesterday. Here it is.
Russia is there. Russia used to be the Soviet Union. Afghanistan made it Russia because they went bankrupt fighting in Afghanistan. The reason Russia was in Afghanistan was because terrorists were going into Russia. They were right to be there. The problem is it was a tough fight. And literally they went bankrupt. They went into being called Russia again as opposed to the Soviet Union.
Did that make any sense to you? Was any of that factual? Seriously?
Well, some of it was kind of semi-factual. The business about, I'll give them the confusion that many people have about Russia versus the Soviet Union. Well, Russia is a shadow of what the Soviet Union was, and about half the population. So there's a big difference between Russia and the Soviet Union and all the other Soviet republics. The Russians were in Afghanistan not because of terrorism, but because they just wanted to dominate Afghanistan. That's all it was about. And for him to say that it was entirely appropriate for them to be there is incredible in light of the fact that we were helping the Mujahideen, who later morphed into the Taliban, to get rid of the Russians. So it's an interesting interpretation of history, I'll put it that way.
That is a very generous response. Thank you so much, Director. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Don.
It's a new day in Washington. The Democratic majority in the House, and President Trump already wrangling for control. Who will come out on top?
I'll be right back. With moderate to severe Crohn's disease,
This is the first night of a new era in Washington, but there is still no end in sight for the partial government shutdown. A total of 800,000 federal employees have been furloughed or working without pay since December 21st. and they won't get their paychecks until the government reopens, which doesn't seem like any time soon. The newly democratically controlled House, with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, passing a package of bills tonight that would end the shutdown, but without any money for the wall. The president not only digging in his heels, but staging a publicity stunt to steal the spotlight from Democrats, celebrating their taking back of the House. Appearing for the first time ever in the White House briefing room, writing up Border Patrol agents who support his call for a wall, but taking no questions from reporters. Not to be outdone, Pelosi then briefed reporters saying this.
We're not doing a wall. Does anybody have any doubt that we're not doing a wall?
So there is plenty to discuss. Ryan Liz is here to help us out. So is Nina Turner and Alice Stewart. Good evening. Didn't I warn everybody about this? I said he is no longer going to have the entire spotlight, the entire media narrative. He was going to have to, remember I said that, share it with Nancy Pelosi, and I think that was going to be one of his biggest concerns, something that he's not used to. Ryan,
yeah,
I was right. He didn't like it today.
He didn't like it. He's got that full ensemble of cameras in the briefing room, so he can pop in there whenever he wants and get on the news. So I think he took advantage of it today. The whole day was about the Democrats and the Democratic takeover of the House, and frankly, a lot of the coverage was a sort of celebration of the diversity in the Democratic Party and a lot of firsts in this new House of Representatives. And I think you're right, Don. I think he was sitting there watching it because we know he watches seething. He watches hours and hours of cable TV. We know that. Crazy to say that, but that's what the president does with his time, with his free time. And nothing wrong with cable TV, of course. But he was obviously seething and obviously needed to insert himself into a storyline that he doesn't like because he got beat badly in the midterm elections, and today was the sort of culmination of that defeat.
Yeah, but it didn't work. I mean, it had stunt written all over it. I mean, Nina, help me out here. No?
Don, I wish I could. I mean, the president he's a whiner. He whines like a baby. He's a liar and he's a whiner. And I think what needs to happen is the Republicans got to go over there and change the president's diapers, Don. That's what this is coming down to, so that he can cut it out, so that the grown folks, the big girls and the big boys, can go around the table, sit around the table and do what is necessary for this government. Number one is to do away with this shutdown so that those 800,000 folks that you talked about, some of those are our neighbors, our relatives, our friends, and even strangers who definitely need their paychecks that they are not getting. So the whining and the lying must stop. That's my memo to the president.
That's quite a mental picture. Go ahead, Alice.
But Don, you say it didn't work. I flipped over to one of our competing networks right after this happened, and it worked for his base. They took it hook, line, and sinker and praised him for getting out there and putting his commercial out there and leaving the briefing room without taking any questions. And for his base, the message that he wanted to get out, it worked like a charm.
But the word you said was commercial. Go ahead, Alice.
That would have been a really important message to get out and show the support for this wall. 12 days and 21 hours ago, before we got to this shutdown point. So it's a tremendous message. He needs to make sure that people understand that there is support for the wall amongst people out there, but it's about 12 days a little bit too late.
Okay, Alice, let me ask you this, because I think you make a very good point there, because Nancy Pelosi said it loud and clear. She said, we're not doing a wall. She called it an immorality. The president has staked so much on this wall. But is it out of reach, Alice?
It remains to be seen. Clearly, we have both sides in their corners with their arms crossed, and they're not budging. We have Mike Pence saying no wall, no deal, and we have Nancy Pelosi saying no money for no wall, no how, no way, never. And we have to find a way to come to the middle. If we come down, the president comes down on the $5 billion, and Democrats come up on the 1.3 or 1.6, and we have some communication about DACA and making this not just about his big, beautiful wall, but make it more about border security. There is bipartisanship consensus for this, and that needs to be part of this conversation, because Americans agree we do need to secure the border. We do need to provide protections for DACA. And until that's part of this conversation, we're going to continue to be in the shutdown, and that's not a good place to be.
Is this how the president is going to fight the new Congress, with stunts and memes, Nina?
Well, he's very good at it. I mean, one thing we can say, whether you agree with his policies or his tactics, he is the master at this, because this is reality TV, not at its finest, because being the president of the United States of America, we can't afford for these kinds of stunts. But absolutely, Don, that's his wheelhouse, and he's masterful at it.
But don't you get it? Like immediately I said, stunt, stunt, stunt.
Mm-hmm, you did.
And I said, okay, don't fall for it. I was at home going, do not fall for it. Monitor the briefing room. If he takes questions, go to it. If he doesn't, don't. Or turn it around quickly. Do you feel, Ryan, that the media has to be savvier instead of falling for those sorts of things? Or do you think that you just run and take whatever he goes to the podium?
I think we still, even, after 3 years now of covering Trump, we struggle with how much, in the old days, if the president said something, if the president was on TV, if there was a briefing from the White House, it was just automatically news. It was by definition news. And we're struggling with this idea of broadcasting lies and propaganda and news conferences where you don't actually get questions. We're sort of struggling, all of us in the news business are struggling with when is it the appropriate time to take something like that live, and when do you just have your producers and others watch it and chop it up and use the bits.
I just remember, I've been here long
newsworthy.
enough. I've been here since 2006, and I remember when Obama, by the way, Breonna Keeler did call it a stunt right away afterwards. But I just remember when Obama came into office, and because it was the first black president, like every press briefing they were taking, and after a while, we were missing so much news, we would say, the producer said, okay, let's go to the briefing now. They're taking questions about it. The briefings weren't aired live. Every time someone, over at the White House said something, we would monitor it to make sure it wasn't a stunt or just a talking point, and then put it on television. So, I don't know if that's the answer.
I don't make any of these decisions, obviously, but I think that's the way to cover Trump, is to digest it a little bit first before you present it. And
because he has such a problem with it.
That would take his oxygen away. I'm sorry about that, but it would definitely take his oxygen. That is his life's blood right there. That's what gets him ticking. He knows that he is a magnet, and whatever he says, he stubs his toe, he sends out a tweet, it gets covered. And to the extent that we are not just totally 24/7, 365 occupied, whatever move that this man makes, yes, it plays right into his hands.
The unfortunate thing is that the press briefing room is such a phenomenal place, and it should be a place where important things happen and big announcements are made, and I hope we don't get to the point where it's a boy who cried wolf. If he says he's going to speak in the briefing room, it should be something monumental. Today was a tremendous historic day here in Washington. It was great to be on the Hill and seeing all these new fresh faces, and unfortunately that, in my view, was something that really kind of distracted from what is a big day here in Washington.
Well, can I just say just to clarify, the reason to do that, what you suggested, Don, is not to oppose Trump or to harm him in any way, or to to get back at him because he's frustrating. I just think it's a more responsible way to present what's going on in Washington. So
it's not our business also to be the promoter of propaganda or lies, and the best way to sort out what's truth and what's not is to, as you say, take a minute to absorb it. Because listen, one of the people at the president's briefing room appearance today was Chris Crane, the president of the National Ice Council. He's the one getting a pat on the back from President Trump. You might remember him. This is from Bob Woodward's book, Fear. Crane and the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, reportedly almost got into a fist fight in the Oval Office. Now Crane's back in the White House a day after Kelly leaves. Does that tell us anything, Nina?
It does. I mean, again, theater, the world is a stage. President Trump has taken every single opportunity to submit that into the minds of the American people. And the fact that you had General Kelly that tried to stop this kind of foolishness, and a president now that has nobody there to try to keep him disciplined, which is very hard to do, is very telling. So yes, all theater cementing in the minds of the American people lies, lies, damn lies, and lies on top of lies. It's all an illusion what this president is doing. And he's selfish, Don. And we've said this time and time again. Again, 800,000 employees, their families, from all walks of life. People are suffering while he's playing games with this wall.
Look, Kelly was a hardliner on immigration, and he thought this guy Crane, who heads the the union, was too far out there to be honored with an Oval Office visit, and that's what precipitated the near fist fight. So the fact that Kelly's gone and this guy's front and center, I think you're exactly right, Don. It tells you a lot.
As we say in the business, allegedly, right? So listen, just a day before the new Congress was sworn in, a right-wing Twitter account posted a video of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing the dance Ali Sheedy did in the Breakfast Club. It's from a video she participated in when she was in college, not in high school, as the account claimed. Judging from the comments, it appears to have backfired on the person who posted it. It's not really clear what Ocasio-Cortez is guilty of doing besides being young and having fun here.
Go figure.
Well,
right.
The thing is that, like, her college years and days were much more recent than mine.
I never danced in college. Did you guys? Or to a video? I mean, come on.
Here's the thing. Look, I have a lot of policy concerns about her, but her having fun and dancing and having a good time, I don't see any problem with it. And whoever thought they were going to post that and do some damage to her clearly is sadly mistaken. I think it looks like somebody having a good time.
Is it desperate?
God knows we need that. It's ridiculous.
Was that desperation, and why? I mean, who doesn't have fun and dance around in college?
I can't imagine I can't imagine anyone who watched that video and thought, "Aha! I finally got the oppo dump on her. That's going to take her down." This woman having a great time and dancing. I mean, I think they'll be using this. They should use this to promote her. I mean, her whole brand is being accessible and normal and relatable. So I think it's actually really fascinating watching the right deal with her, because they really don't understand her appeal yet, obviously.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are going, Ali Sheedy, the Breakfast Club.
And who doesn't love Ali Sheedy? I love Ali
Nina,
Sheedy.
we're old enough to know, but I'm sure some of the young millennials are like, who is that?
They know the Breakfast Club, though, Don.
And what was Pretty in Pink? That was Ali Sheedy. Ali Sheedy was in Pretty Pink. Molly Ringwald.
Molly Ringwald, yeah.
And Breakfast Club as well.
Is Ali Sheedy, yeah.
As we say, we old. Okay, y'all.
We're seasoned. Talking about Don.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks, Don. You too.
House Democrats wasting no time getting to work tonight, including introducing a bill to protect Robert Mueller. Can they pass it?
I shook the bad habits that got me into credit card debt, but couldn't quite shake the balance. I needed a fresh start, and I found one at LendingTree. They showed me how I could turn 4 monthly payments into 1. I saved a ton. I'm finally breaking out of this debt cycle. LendingTree.
For myself and you, I know this love is true, and I never let you go.
Elite Singles, the leading dating site for highly educated singles. Register today to love again at EliteSingles.com.
Sometimes I like to go in Trivago and explore the different possibilities a hotel can offer me. Like a beautiful pool. Whoa! Search for your destination, choose filters, and select your maximum budget. Hotel Trivago.
Introducing the new South Beach Diet. It's keto-friendly.
Lose up to 7 pounds in your first 7 days. South Beach is a low-carb, high-protein, keto-friendly program that burns fat and transforms your metabolism.
I lost 42 pounds with the South Beach Diet. I'm in the best shape of my life.
Lost 30 pounds on the South Beach Diet.
Call or go online right now.
Go online or call 855-299-FIRM right now and save 40% plus get probiotic keto-friendly shakes free.
Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong.
However you get ready,
I've gotta be me.
Welcome to the club.
Right now, get started with a shave, shower, or oral care starter set for just $5. Only at DollarShaveClub.com.
What I am. Knock, knock. It's Publishers Clearinghouse with our Forever Prize. Win $5,000 a week for your life. Then after that, someone you choose gets $5,000 a week for their life. Enter at PCH.com, and February 28th, win forever.
From the founder of Discovery Channel comes a new independent streaming service, Curiosity Stream, home of groundbreaking documentaries and award-winning original series. Follow your curiosity. This is Curiosity Stream.
The first time I saw Gene Wilder in person, I was hooked.
He made her feel that she deserved to live life. Gene had created a family atmosphere.
It felt like my life went from black and white to Technicolor.
It's been said that literature and drama and poetry hold up a mirror to humanity. Movies certainly do. It's like being able to eavesdrop on people's dreams, what they fear, what they hope for, or what they care about. To look at the movies is to know what's going on around you in the world, to feel it.
It's only day one of the new Congress, and Democratic oversight of the Trump administration has already begun. Democrats on the Judiciary Committee have introduced a bill to protect special counsel Robert Mueller. Let's discuss now. Asha Rangappa is here, as well as Michael Moore. Good evening to both of you. Good to see you. Happy New Year. So, Asha, House Democrats were expected to introduce this bill. Now that there is a Democratic majority in Congress, does it have a better chance of passing?
Well, I don't know where it will go, but I think that it's important to understand what this bill does. Remember that the special counsel regulations come straight out of the executive branch from the Department of Justice, unlike the independent counsel like Kenneth Starr, who was appointed by Congress, which means that if President Trump fires this person, Mueller, he has no rights to do anything about it. He can only be fired for certain criteria like misconduct or dereliction of duty or conflict of interest. But if he's wrongly fired, there's no recourse. So what this bill would do would allow that to be challenged in court and would effectively bring in another branch. And that's a good thing overall, because otherwise, you just have a showdown about whether, there should be impeachment or something like that. It would escalate very quickly. So I think that it's a good measure. Though practically speaking, I think at this point, the train has left the station, and I'm not really sure that the president could do anything to really stop this investigation, including by firing Mueller.
Michael, I want to play something for you that Speaker Pelosi said this morning.
As you well know, there is long-standing Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president should not be indicted. But it is not the law.
No, it is not the law. Everything indicates that a president can be indicted after he is no longer president of the United States.
What about a sitting president?
Well, sitting president when he's no longer president of the United States.
A president who is in office. Right. Could Robert Mueller come back and say, I am seeking an indictment?
I think that is an open discussion. I think that is an open discussion in terms of the law.
Do you think it's an open question that the president can be indicted?
I do, and I think that guidance is just that. It's guidance. It's not a statute. It's not the law. It's a policy, and policies and guidance can be changed. I mean, we know that, and there can be disputes and disagreements and whether or not those are in effect. I mean, there's some rules right now for the Department of Justice that say that department attorneys are not supposed to give credence and follow guidance from other agencies. So I think it's an open question. One thing that we could see would be an indictment of the president that remains sealed until he leaves office. And that, to me, is a more likely possibility than seeing a president indicted and then brought to trial or brought before the court system during the time that he's in office. I just don't think that's unlikely. I think the court would basically say that he's got time to do his, he needs to be able to focus on his job. I mean, that's sort of a joke maybe with this administration, but I think in normal circumstances they would say that, the president should be able to focus on his or her job. But you could see an indictment sealed, held until the president leaves office, and then brought out.
Asha, what do you make of Speaker Pelosi's comments?
Well, I think that among legal scholars, there is actually some debate over whether a sitting president can be indicted. As Michael just said, this is not a settled legal question. This is guidance in the Department of Justice. Fortunately, we haven't had to test this so far. But as he said, the concern in the Department of Justice, memorandum opinion is that this would take away from the president's duties. And you could see the indictment and the trial as being two bifurcated, processes or stages. So there are some who believe that you could indict the president even if you postpone the trial until later, because otherwise you would effectively be able to have someone immune to any kind of criminal liability for the entire time that they're in presidential office for up to 8 years, which wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Asha, I want to turn now to news out of the Department of Justice. The acting Attorney General, Matthew Whitaker, told a former AG that a U.S. attorney is investigating possible abuse of power by the FBI in surveilling former Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Whitaker also says that they are looking into whether the FBI should have done more to investigate the Clinton Foundation. Does it strike you as strange that a DOJ official would tell a private citizen about an investigation, even if that private citizen happens to be a former attorney general?
Absolutely, Don. And not just, I'm sorry,
that was for you.
Not just a DOJ official. This is the acting attorney general of the United States, whose job is to lead this entire department. It's not only inappropriate, but it calls up again all of the questions that have been raised about the appearance of conflict that he has when it comes to many of the things that are going on in this department, and particularly when it comes to the FBI and things relating to the Mueller investigation or Russia. And I think what's really disconcerting is that his job is to avoid the appearance of any conflict. So even if he has decided not to recuse because of prior comments that he's made, he has an affirmative duty to mitigate any further appearance of a lack of impartiality, and it seems to me that he is just continuing to disregard that, and that is really to the detriment of the entire Department of Justice, in my opinion.
Michael, the former Attorney General Jeff Sessions confirmed that the DOJ was looking into this back in March of 2018, and it looks like it's still going on. Does that tell us anything about these investigations?
It does. There's a strange fixation, I think, with the Republicans and Hillary Clinton, and they just cannot get past that. And that's odd to me. And I think it's particularly odd, too, that you've got the Department of Justice now essentially taking the role of almost a defense lawyer in a case, because there's the investigation going on, but yet the department and these federal prosecutors are wanting to go back and talk about whether or not the investigators who were working on the case did the right thing, and they're less worried about what we now know. For instance, they're less worried about the fact that we had Russians in the Trump Tower meeting. They're less worried about whether or not we had Russians in the Oval Office, whether or not there was interference with the election, whether or not there are business commingling between the Trump administration and Russian money. And they're more worried about whether or not, well, maybe they looked too hard at Carter Page or didn't do something or didn't look quite enough at the Clinton Foundation. That's ridiculous. And we're at this point, which I think they need to take great care, because you've got a Democratic House now coming in. You've got new committees. They're hiring professional prosecutors and lawyers to come in and look at this. And they're not going to be distracted by this smut sensationalism that's been coming out of the administration for the last year. They're going to be looking at this, and they're going to be making decisions about policy, about what happens to children when they come in here and are taken from their parents, what happens when, are we going to have interference in our elective process and our democratic processes, and hopefully you're going to find professional people now counseling these committees who are focused and follow like a bloodhound the scent of the money, because this investigation is going to continue to be all about following the money.
Okay, I want to play this, and we have a short time left, so quick responses on the other side. But this is what Matt Whitaker said at a cabinet meeting on Wednesday.
I will start by highlighting the fact that you stayed in Washington, D.C. over the holidays, giving up Christmas with your family, New Year's with your family, trying to bring an end to this shutdown and security to our southern border. While some members of Congress went on vacation and ignored the problem. You have demonstrated your dedication to delivering on this critical issue for our country and for the American people, but Congress has to act.
What?
You're the best. You're so good, boss. I love you.
Yeah, it's the pat on the back meeting. It's not the cabinet meeting anymore. And the remarks would always be so much more sincere if they didn't have to be typed out before the meeting, wouldn't they? I mean, when they have to look down and read their accolades, you know, it's like having to tell your date, look down the note and say, "Boy, you look pretty tonight." I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, this whole thing is a charade.
Is that appropriate, Asha? I mean, he is the acting attorney general. Are comments like that appropriate?
He needs to lead this department and show that it is independent of politics and policy decisions. They are there to implement policy priorities that the administration puts forth. But, to comment like that at a cabinet meeting is not appropriate, and again, just compounds many of the other questions that have already been raised about whether or not he can separate his political leanings or views from his job as in leading the Department of Justice.
I'm so happy that you two are here. You're such great Americans. I mean, just 2 days after New Year's, you took it upon yourselves to come in, and you're just such patriotic people. I'm just so happy for you.
Well, you're the best host on CNN. I'll let that read my name.
Good night. Thank you, Bo.
Good night, Don. Good to see you.
A big day on Capitol Hill with most diverse Congress in U.S. history sworn in. My next guest is an African-American freshman congressman from Texas. I'm going to ask him what his voters think of President Trump's wall.
We deliver by delivering.
I'm Ken Jacobus, and I switched to the Spark Cash Card from Capital One. I earn unlimited 2% cash back on everything I buy. And last year, I earned $36,000 in cash back, which I used to offer health insurance to my employees. What's in your wallet?
So I needed legal advice. And I heard that my cousin's wife's sister's husband was a lawyer, so I called him. But he never called me back.
If your cousin's wife's sister's husband isn't a lawyer, call LegalZoom and we'll connect you with an attorney. LegalZoom, where life meets legal.
Welcome to Atlantis, where the unexpected awaits. A vacation that touches your soul, where unexpected moments become lifelong memories, bonding you to strangers, to friends, to the ocean. There are many vacations, but the best ones happen on an island called Paradise, at a place called Atlantis.
Save up to 30% when you book by January 14th at 1-800-ATLANTIS or AtlantisBahamas.com.
He's interviewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday mornings at 9 Eastern.
This is cellulose acetate, a plant-based material that's not only extremely durable, but also quite flexible, making it ideal for Warby Parker glasses, which, by the way, start at $95, including prescription lenses. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com. Oh yeah, about those prescription lenses. Warby Parker glasses come standard with custom-cut polycarbonate lenses that have been treated with scratch-resistant and anti-reflective coatings. Nice. Use your FSA or HSA dollars at warbyparker.com.
Nathan, every 4th grader's favorite math teacher, needed to take frozen pizza out of the equation. With Home Chef, Nathan can cook above his grade level. Watch him sear, add wine, butter, and beef stock to one hot pan. Watch as he learns to dice, to cube, to garnish even. This perfect steak looks like the perfect steak on this recipe card. Is this some kind of new math? Home Chef. Meals anyone can cook. Get $30 off your first order.
The Lead with Jake Tapper, tomorrow starting at 4 Eastern on CNN.
The 100 16th Congress was sworn in just a few hours ago in the middle of a partial government shutdown. It is the most racially, ethnically, and gender diverse Congress in U.S. history. One of those new members is Texas Democrat Colin Allred. We spoke the night before the election and again just after he won, flipping a seat that had been controlled by Republicans for 22 years. There he is. You see, Congressman joins me now. Good evening. Congratulations to you, Congressman. It's nice to be able to call you that instead of saying Congressman-elect or candidate. So tell me about day one.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Don. It's been a whirlwind day. We've had a lot happening here. I introduced a resolution today to defend the ACA, to make sure that people with pre-existing conditions could get the coverage that they needed. We're going to vote to reopen the government to try and make sure that we're keeping our commitment to the American people. There's a lot going on.
It's an interesting time. We're going to talk about all those things. But you have to admit, this is an interesting time to be entering Congress especially. I mean, to be entering government, Senate, but the Congress especially. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, this is it's a historic time. And, you know, as somebody who came here hoping to form some bipartisan coalitions to get things done, to enter during a government shutdown that is happening largely because the president won't budge on a campaign promise, it is a very interesting time to come here. But I do think it also creates an opportunity here for us that we can show that we can lead and that we can get things done. And if the government doesn't reopen, it's not going to be on the House of Representatives.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to my next question. You represent a state with the longest stretch of border with Mexico. Mexico was supposed to pay for this wall, but now the government shutdown over funding is, funding for it. Yeah. Do Texans want a wall, you think?
I know my constituents don't, and I know that this is not the most effective way for us to secure the border. We have bipartisan consensus that we need to secure the border, that we are committed to that. We are voting for that tonight, for a budget that will do exactly that. It's what the Senate voted for just a few weeks ago. But we don't believe in wasting money. If we want to spend $5 billion on something, I can think of a few other projects that are much more needed in my area.
Just be honest with me. Did you say today, after all this went down, because so much happened, did you say, what have I gotten myself into?
Well, I've been thinking that for a while now. So.
All right, good. I'm glad you're honest about it. Yeah. Listen, I asked you on the eve of your election what was the most important thing to you, and here's what you said. Watch this.
By far the largest issue is healthcare. Everywhere I go, every event that I have, people talk to me about healthcare. They are worried about what nearly happened in the last congressional session, which my opponent, Pete Sessions, voted to repeal the ACA, and we were one thumbs down away from John McCain from losing protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That's something that really shouldn't be a partisan issue. It affects people of every political stripe, and it's something that we should be able, I think, to find some consensus on if we can get people of goodwill there.
So just today, some 17 attorneys general appealed a Texas federal judge's ruling last month declaring the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional. I understand that you introduced a resolution related to the ACA. What is it?
Yeah. Well, what we did today was we said that the House of Representatives is going to defend the constitutionality of the ACA, and we are putting the House on the side of the people. This is something that should have been done before, and we're getting it done now. This lawsuit is coming out of Texas, and the resistance to it is also coming out of Texas. And I'm extremely proud to be helping to lead the fight on this.
Yeah. I also asked you about this, which was controversial. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, about whether you would support her. You said that you wanted to keep your options open. Today you voted for her. Why'd you make that choice?
Well, I wanted to see what my options were and use whatever leverage I had to serve my constituents. You know, I'm not here so much to form friendships as I am to get things done for the people who elected me. And so I tried to use whatever leverage I have in any context to make sure I can deliver for my constituents. And that's exactly what I did with the vote for Speaker as well.
What's been the biggest adjustment so far, because you've gone from a candidate to a congressman?
Well, there's a lot of adjustments. I think one of the biggest things right now for me personally is just figuring out where I'm going to live, because I'm staying in a hotel here in D.C. My wife is having a baby next month. We've got a lot going on that front, but I'm trying to stay focused on the job as well.
My goodness, your life has changed a lot. You do have a lot on your plate, and you're someone you have to work hard to do this, because you flipped a traditionally conservative district. Is that on your mind at all as you make choices about upcoming legislation, about a potential future impeachment battle?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I try to see things and think about them not in a political context, especially when I'm casting votes. I try to think about what's best for my constituents. And Don, this is not my seat. This seat belongs to the people of my district, and they're going to judge me based on the performance that I do here in D.C. and in the work that we do in the district.
Well, let me just ask you right there, because a lot of your constituents are conservative. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah. Well, I think we also have a lot of people who identify otherwise, and so I think we have a broad mix in my district. And I actually think that in this case, doing what's right is also good politics.
Yeah. No funding for the wall?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
No. So there you have. How does this end? Do you know?
Well, I know that we are committed to border security, to funding smart efforts to secure the border, to making sure that we reopen the government and keep our commitment to the American people and to the federal workers who some are working right now without pay. This is on the president. We have picked up the Senate's bills that they passed to fund the government, and we're going to pass those exact bills. And so basically we have to say yes to what you just said yes to, and we'll see whether or not the president will sign that.
Congressman Allred, thank you. Good luck to you.
Thanks so much, Don.
And congratulations on the baby.
Thank you.
A resident doctor fired after shocking social media post claiming that she would deliberately give Jewish patients the wrong medication. A doctor. Where's all this hate coming from?
This is your wake-up call. If you have moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis, month after month, the clock is ticking on irreversible joint damage. Ongoing pain and stiffness are signs of joint erosion. Humira can help stop the clock. Prescribed for 15 years, Humira targets and blocks a source of inflammation that contributes to joint pain and irreversible damage.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Help stop the clock on further irreversible joint damage. Talk to your rheumatologist. Right here, right now. Humira.
What you don't see can hurt you. Today's connected world is full of threats you may not see if you just monitor your credit to help protect your identity. LifeLock sees more, like your personal information on the dark web. And now with the power of Norton, we detect threats like ransomware too, to help protect your identity and devices. Plus, if there's an identity theft problem, we'll work to fix it with our $1 million protection package. Get LifeLock with Norton, starting at $9.99 a month.
For myself and you, I know this love is true. And I'll never let you go.
Elite Singles, the leading dating site for highly educated singles. Register today to love again at elitesingles.com.
When it comes to hotels, we're very demanding. We want a pool, a cool pool, 24-hour room service, and a doctor on site. Just select the filters you need, and Trivago will compare prices from hundreds of websites worldwide. Hotel, Trivago.
Hi, I'm Gilda Radner, and, okay, now.
People want to know what made you funny. From the time I was a kid, I loved to pretend.
She was the very first performer chosen for the cast of Saturday Night Live.
There, Rosanna,
They just loved her.
I basically stole all of my characters from Gilda.
I can do almost anything if people are laughing. It's the story of my life.
Marijuana has unleashed a green gold rush across our nation. It's creating $10.8 billion in new wealth a year. And every day, it's transforming more and more Americans into millionaires. In an historic event, former Speaker of the House John Boehner reveals how you could become one of them. Join him online for the American Cannabis Summit. To secure your spot, text YES to 76280. It's free to attend. Text YES to 76280.
These folks, they don't have time to go to the post office. They have businesses to grow, customers to care for, lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com. Print discounted postage for any letter, any package, anytime, right from your computer. All the amazing services of the post office, only cheaper. Get our special TV offer, a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com/try and never go to the post office again.
Tonight, there are calls for the license of an Ohio physician to be revoked after anti-Semitic tweets she posted on social media, including a threat to deliberately give Jewish patients the wrong medication. Dr. Laura Collab was a first-year resident at the Cleveland Clinic. She was dismissed in September once the postings came to light. One disturbing tweet reads in part, "I'll purposely give all the Yehud Jews the wrong meds." Joining me now is Rabbi Marvin Heyer, Dean and founder of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Rabbi, thank you so much. This is truly disturbing, extremely disturbing. This tweet that one is reportedly many anti-Semitic ones that Dr. Collab posted. This is someone who took an oath to care for people, and she is threatening harm. Give me your reaction.
Well, first of all, it's absolutely horrific. She's violating the Hippocratic Oath. And not only that, she got her license in a distinguished Jewish medical college that accepts many non-Jews. And here is a Muslim admitted into the college, receives her license, and this is how she repays that college. It's absolutely outrageous. Her license should be revoked. And if she wants to practice medicine, maybe she can do so for ISIS.
Wow, strong statement. Let me read part of your statement that you released through the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and it says in part, "While the Cleveland Clinic did the right thing, this person remains a menace to the community at large, has made a mockery of the Hippocratic Oath through her hatred to protect the public. Her medical license should be revoked." The Cleveland Clinic told CNN that although Collab's license is still instated, that she does not have the ability to practice medicine at this time. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, I think I believe it calls for her license to be revoked, because imagine if her license is not revoked, what kind of message does this send to other would-be fanatics, that they can get away with something like that? It's really unimaginable that a doctor could have this in her mind to tweet that she's going to deliberately give the wrong medicine to people. I've never heard. We deal with hatred, anti-Semitism, and bigotry all my life. I've never heard of a story like this.
I'll second that. So I want to put some stats up for you. Okay, Rabbi, this according to the FBI, hate crimes rose 17% in 2017, a jump that was partly driven by a spike in anti-Semitic incidents. In that same time period, crimes targeting Jews increased at a rate of 37%. What do you think is behind this dramatic increase?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the State of Israel, for example, this year, the State of Israel, for the first time, Jerusalem was recognized as the capital of Israel, West Jerusalem. And this was not received well in the Muslim world by all the fanatics. Look what's happened in Europe. I know there are some who want to attribute that this has something to do with American politics. But let me remind the audience, we have never experienced the kind of anti-Semitism that we see now in Europe for the last 15 years. For 15 years now, 38% of Europe's Jews say they want to leave Europe. And this has not happened last year. This has been going on for a decade. Why? And if we answer that why question, we'll maybe come to the answer to the question, why did the terrible event happen in Pittsburgh? Because anti-Semitism is back in vogue. And let me make one other point on. Hitler would be the most shocked of anyone in the world. 2 hours before he committed suicide, he predicted that it would take centuries for anti-Semitism to take hold again in the world and for National Socialism to be ripe again. He was wrong. It's ripe all over the world, every place in Europe, in Canada, in the United States, and in Great Britain.
Rabbi, I thank you for your time. And the stats, listen, you spoke about other stats. The ones I talked about were FBI, which would be the United States. But again, you're right. It's awful. I don't know what's going on. Hate has been around forever, but this has to stop. And we appreciate you coming on CNN. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Hey, who are you?
Oh, hey, Jeff, I'm a car thief. What? I'm here to steal your car because, well, that's my job.
What?
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 What? What? What? What?
It happens.
And you got cut rate car insurance? Paying for this could feel like getting robbed twice. So get Allstate. And be better protected from mayhem. Like me.
There's an exotic place where you can swim in the sky. Where all the pleasures of a 5-star luxury vacation are all included. Sandals Grenada. Experience the sandals of tomorrow today. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong.
However you get ready,
I've gotta be me.
welcome to the club. Right now, get started with a shave, shower, or oral care starter set for just $5. Only at dollarshaveclub.com.
What I am.
Want to win $5,000 a week forever from Publishers Clearinghouse? Win $5,000 a week for your life. Then after that, someone you choose gets $5,000 a week for their life. Enter at PCH.com and February 28th, win forever.
I'm a do-it-yourselfer. So when I needed legal advice, I just decided to go to law school and handle it myself. Just kidding. I hated school.
If you aren't interested in becoming a lawyer yourself, call LegalZoom and we'll connect you with an actual attorney.
Night, buddy.
Turn down service. Brought to you by ADT. A smart home with 24/7 protection. Designed and installed just for you.
Triple points, all restaurants.
Triple points? How did Gary figure that one out? I don't even get double points. I hate you, Gary.
Go to comparecards.com where you can search and apply for credit cards based on the perks you like most. Just compare cards.
Breathe freely fast with Vicks Sinex.
My congestion's gone.
I can breathe again! I can breathe again! Oh.
Vicks Sinex. Breathe on.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
Mesothelioma. It's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
Today in the House, 235 Democrats, 199 Republicans kicked off the 116th Congress. There are 435 seats in Congress, so with some quick math, we know that leaves 1 seat empty. And that empty seat is for North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. In that district, the election results from November are still not certified. The results now have the Republican Mark Harris leading Democrat Dan McCready by 905 votes. But I want you to remember this. Just days after the 2018 election, we learned of stunning election fraud allegations. The allegations center around a political operative, McCrae Dowless, a convicted felon who was working for a firm hired by the Republican candidate. Allegedly, this operative had something to do with highly questionable absentee ballot activity. Dowless personally turned in 592 of the 1,341 total absentee ballot requests in Bladen County. And a set of 161 ballots obtained by CNN showed that 9 people individually signed as witnesses on at least 10 absentee ballots. Many of those 9 are loosely connected to Dowless. Usually the witness for an absentee ballot is the voter's family or friends. And this, CNN learned that more than 1,000 ballots in the race might have been destroyed. There are also allegations that Republican operatives took partially filled out ballots from voters and filled out the rest before submitting them. On top of that, CNN counts 1,680 absentee ballots that were requested but not returned in the 9th district. That's a lot of ballots. Dallas has denied wrongdoing to the Charlotte Observer. And Harris's campaign has denied any knowledge of potentially illegal behavior that took place on his behalf. But if these allegations are true, the outcome of that race may have been impacted. And that is why, as of tonight, this seat is still not filled. Once the allegations of fraud came to light, the state's election board did not move to certify the results. And they failed to certify the results before the board dissolved last week. And here's where it gets really tricky. The state dissolved the elections board last month as part of an ongoing and separate legal battle about its makeup. There is a new law governing the board that goes into effect at the end of the month. Then the board can move to certify results. But in the meantime, it won't happen. However, by law, the election board staff is still allowed to investigate what might have gone on in the 9th district. I know it's complicated. And today, Mark Harris, the Republican in the race, was interviewed by investigators from the board staff about the alleged fraud. But also today, Harris asked a judge to certify the results, claiming he has been left with no choice.
We kind of find ourselves in no man's land, if you will, and we have asked the court to step in. We don't believe that the number of ballots in question would change the outcome of this election.
But it's not up for him to believe. Why wouldn't Mark Harris want to wait for investigators to find out the truth? Because the investigation by the election board is still ongoing. And there are also ongoing criminal investigations by the Wake County District Attorney's Office and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. And don't forget, the Democrat in the race, Dan McCready, has taken back his concession. Tonight, he told us exclusively, Mark Harris spent a lot of time today trying to make himself look like a victim. But the real victims are the North Carolinians who had their voices silenced and votes stolen by members of Mark Harris's campaign. The right to vote is the foundation of our democracy. That right might be an inconvenience for Mr. Harris, but for the rest of us, it is a right worth defending. On Capitol Hill in the new House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, has said that Democrats will work to ensure that the Republican will not be seated. He says that